On this computer. Okay, we're recording. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, welcome to this online recording of our Riverina Teachers Network. So I'll start off with an acknowledgement of country. So we're obviously on Wiradjuri country. We're respectful of being on Wiradjuri country. It's where our students are learning, and Wiradjuri culture is still very much alive and surviving, and we're learning from it. So we're proud to do that, and we're respectful of elders past, present, and emerging. So on that note, we're going to whip through this today. I have a pretty exciting thing here. Jenny, you haven't seen this.
No.
Can you read that out?
What's happening with the Wiradjuri seasons?
Yeah.
Summer, or you've only got 4 though.
I do only have 4. So this is...
Yeah, go on.
So this is from Auntie Joycelyn Williams. And Auntie Joycelyn... do I have Auntie Joycelyn's last name right? Auntie Joycelyn... I do, okay, hopefully. So this is one of her books. And Auntie Joycelyn is hoping to pretty soon have a whole series of her books. So I think she has 15 printed, published, and available for all the schools in our area. So I'll just open up to one of the pages in here so you can see what it looks like. So it's a book that's aimed at, I'm guessing, early stage 1, stage 1. So it's a picture book with...
Big book. We call that a big book.
Well, I think, I don't know if it'll be printed in this size.
Right.
So she writes about, in this one, it's about the seasons. So she uses Wiradjuri names for the seasons, but she also starts to talk about how climate change is impacting the seasons and how that might have an impact on country, on plants and animals in our area.
That's excellent.
So I think that's really exciting to see that this will be hopefully available to teachers soon. So watch this space, basically. Well done, Auntie Joycelyn. Okay, the next part of our meeting today, I'm going to go and quickly whip through a bunch of resources available for teachers. So rather than teachers having to Google everything themselves, I'm hoping if they watch this quickly, they can go, oh, that's a good one, that's a good one, that's a good one. So I'm going to whip through this very quickly. I'm going to share the screen I've got here, and I'm going to start with this resource, which is called, it's the homepage of AAEE, the Australian Association for Environmental Education. And I think it's really good because it's basically, I suppose it's a peak body for environmental educators in Australia. And this webpage has links to conferences. Just trying to find my notes here I made a summary of all this anyway. And now I don't have it, that's fine. I'll talk from what I know. So basically, this webpage has links to conferences and it has some resources. And then on another web page, we have the New South Wales chapter of AAEE, or A squared E squared. And on this web page, there's a blog you can read. There's ways to get in contact with other environmental educators. There are some lesson plans. There's some documents here that give professional development to teachers. I'm going to whip through this really quickly. And for those watching on the clip, don't get overwhelmed because it'll all be available probably in the description. A summary of this will all be available with all the links. So I'm going to go through it really quickly. So A squared E squared New South Wales has also made this website, which is called Sustainable Schools New South Wales. So Sustainable Schools New South Wales is, just minimize my screen there, is a website that has a lot of what I call classroom ready resources for these subjects here for a variety of stages, and also has other resources where people can connect to other people, look for grants and competitions to enter their school in. So it's a pretty useful website for educators in New South Wales. Next website I'm going to is called Getting Started with Sustainability in Schools. This website is not put out by A squared E squared New South Wales. It's put out by the national, or it's done with the national body of A squared E squared, I think. So this one has even more resources that are classroom ready resources for teachers. So if you go into their resources portal, you can click on your year level, subject area, key concept. There are a ton of resources ready to go for the classroom. And the other good thing about this website, it also has case studies about schools that have done interesting things. So you might get some inspiration for what you can do in your school. Okay, moving on. Again, the next one is called Take Me Outside New South Wales. So Take Me Out New South Wales is again a program of A Squared, E Squared New South Wales. But this website is specifically aimed not at giving you lessons to use or resources to use in a classroom lesson. This one's to help support teachers that want to do projects within their school. So if you want to connect and see how other teachers or other schools have done projects, this website can get you in touch with other schools that have done things and can give you help or troubleshooting ideas for how to get something started in your school, or maybe how to overcome a hurdle that you've come up for your project in your school. Okay, so that's Take Me Outside New South Wales. Next one is pretty similar. This one's called Eco Schools Australia. And Eco Schools Australia has what I'd probably call a whole school-wide program that you can follow to get not just teachers, but teachers, students, executive, resource management and community all buying into sustainability within the school community. So it sort of spells out how to do that. I think they've previously focused a lot on litter, but now they're also doing things about reducing greenhouse gas emissions as well. So this one's not necessarily just for teachers for a lesson plan, it's for how do you make a whole school program to make your school a more sustainable school. Okay, next one is just for teachers in their classroom. It's called coolaustralia.org. So Cool Australia is a website just with a ton of lesson plans ready to go for all different stages within the classroom. It also has some professional development, but if you're a teacher and you're wondering, what am I going to do this term? Pop onto coolaustralia.org and it has lessons in all of these areas. The next one is ABC Education, and ABC Education is really similar to Cool Australia. They have a bunch of resources that you can use for primary and secondary students, and they're all in one place, and it would take, there's so much on there, I won't go into it now, but yeah, games, apps, and then goes down to just stuff you can use in the classroom straight away. Okay, hope I'm not confusing you too much. Next one is called Adventures at Your Place. Adventures at Your Place is put out by Local Land Services. And this one's, I think, to be honest, to me, it's really aimed at early childhood and maybe early stage one and maybe stage two. And it gives ideas for getting kids outside and noticing what's going on in their environment and just being outside and enjoying their environment more than what they might have been otherwise, or engaging with it or experimenting with it, and essentially learning with it and about it. Next one is a website of our very own Riverina Environmental Education Centre. So there are lessons that you can use in the classroom on here, but there are also ideas for you to use in your programs on this website. And importantly, there's a contact us button which helps you get in touch with the Riverina Environmental Education Centre. I know they're fairly well booked up at the moment, but they are still open, so it is worth getting in touch with them. Okay, for anyone from the Catholic school system, the next is Catholic Earthcare Australia. The really impressive thing they've done is they've got a program here called Earthcare Schools, which I suppose is a little bit like the Eco Schools in that it's a program that's got a whole of school approach where you can you can try and incorporate everyone within the school community in becoming a more sustainable school. And might even be available to non-Catholic schools, I'm not sure, but I've had a look at, and it's very thorough. We're almost at the end. Next one is the Australian Youth Climate Coalition. The Australian Youth Climate Coalition offers online workshops for students to help them get them inspired about being proactive about climate change solutions. And I believe they actually do it not just with adults over the online workshop. It's with young people as well. Only 2 more to go. The next one is a website that I've actually made with a Wagga City Council grant. It's called Simple Climate Action. And it's got a whole unit's worth of lesson plans that are ready to go in a classroom. So it's simpleclimateaction.com. And if you click on the lesson plans, you can just download them all in Word format. And you've got a whole, so for the environmental management and change, or environmental change and management unit in stage 5 geography, these lesson plans would cater for every syllabus dot point within that. And it has a focus on climate change in Wagga Wagga. So that's the theme that goes throughout the whole, all the lesson plans. So I think it's about a 100-page document, I think, or maybe 60-page document, and it goes through the whole thing. So you can use that either as an online resource where students type their responses into the boxes, or you can actually print it out and use it as a hard copy resource. All right, almost there. And last but not least, there is a more recent resource which has come out called Project Firestorm, which is a joint project between the DET, New South Wales DET, and Rural Fire Service. So it's an interactive website that aims to help students learn about bushfires, but it's not just sort of facts and figures. It's learning about preparing for bushfires, surviving them, and then restoring yourself and the community afterwards. But I've just had a look on this, and there's probably just a word of warning. You probably need to do a little bit of research on your students in your class beforehand, because the opening clip of this website in level 1 is a clip of the middle of a bushfire. So if I had a trauma impacted student, yeah, I wouldn't choose. I would use the website carefully, basically. So I have gone through that really, really quickly, but I think it's better than blabbing on. All the links for these will be sent out to our email list after probably next week. So on the week of the 7th of September. So don't worry if you missed the stuff. And I think I will leave it there, and we might just go on to our next agenda item, which is Alice Kent, the Environmental Education Officer from Wagga City Council, giving us a bit of information about their biodiversity plan and some information that she's looking to get from teachers in the area.
Awesome. I will firstly apologise. This room here has efficient technology, so if I'm not moving around too much, the lights go off. So if I all of a sudden go in the dark, I'll do a little dance and I will come back. I forget about it every single time I'm in this meeting room. And there's no window, so it goes completely dark. So council has very recently adopted the Biodiversity Strategy 2020 and 2030, which is very, very exciting because we've not had a document dedicated to biodiversity before. And what was really, really exciting was that we had loads of community response to it. Which is very interesting because sometimes it's very hard to get people to respond to council documents and council reports that are on exhibition. So to have such a great response, I think, is a real reflection of the community's interest and passion for the environment. So that's very, very exciting. So the strategy will very shortly be available online. We're just doing the final tweaks just to the graphic design to that, and then it'll be made available on council's website. But there are sort of 4 main themes that run throughout the document. The first one being planning for biodiversity. So this is looking at how council, does its strategies and policies and management procedures to incorporate biodiversity. And the second one is strengthening our natural assets. So that's all about protecting what we have and enhancing, remnant vegetation or enhancing populations that we need to protect. The third one is managing biosecurity. So that's all about weed and pest management. And the last one, though most important, is the educating and collaborating element of this strategy, which is all about community awareness. So how can we get the community educated on biodiversity, increase their understanding, and actively get them, increasing the biodiversity value of their own backyards, because that's a parcel of land that, council can't manage, but everyone, individuals can manage their own parcels of land for biodiversity, but also engaging them with, the broader natural areas, the river, Williams Hill, Rocky Hill, those sorts of places. So it's very, very exciting. And definitely there's a school education theme that I would love to get through there in my plan. So I've done a separate plan looking at just education. I'll be looking to target some high schools next year, whilst developing a broader school program. So that's why I'd love to hear from teachers who have an interest in biodiversity or absolutely no interest, because that's also really valuable feedback as well. So I've got a couple of questions. So maybe if there are some teachers out there who'd be willing to maybe pop a few answers into an email, would you, Ben, put my email address?
Yep.
With everything?
Beautiful.
That would be
no problem.
Thank you. So yeah, if you've got some thoughts on this, I'd love to hear, and just follow Ben's instructions to access my email. But would love to know what people's current understanding of biodiversity. A lot of feedback we got through the consultation process is that it's a new word to many, and it is a difficult concept to kind of get your head around. So I'd love to know what I don't even want to kind of give the answer away. So I just would love to know your current thoughts on what biodiversity is, or how you'd rate your current understanding of it, and definitely how confident you'd be in teaching biodiversity. I'd love to know whether biodiversity is even relevant to what you're teaching, whether it's relevant to your group or year group. And because we are looking at developing programs specifically targeting schools, would this be something that you would participate in, a council biodiversity program targeted at schools? And from there, I'd also love to know what you'd like to see in such a program, and possibly the most important thing would be, how can councils support schools to deliver biodiversity education or increase biodiversity on your patch, those sorts of things. So it's, any thoughts teachers might have in regards to biodiversity, I'd love to hear it. We are doing a community survey, which is, I want to estimate another month away from being distributed to the community, but I'd particularly love, teachers' thoughts on an education-based package. The other thing I wanted to mention, so if you're going to email me, here's another one you can email me about, which is the Climate Clever app. Now, if anyone...
I'll just share the screen here, Alice. I'll bring it up on the screen. No worries, mate.
So anyone had been watching the Fight for Planet A series in episode 2, they followed the journey of a school who had access to the Climate Clever app, where they conducted an audit of their school to measure and calculate their carbon footprint and where this is coming from. So what sort of utilities was contributing to the carbon footprint, and from there you'd develop an action plan. So the intention of this app is to get schools reducing their carbon footprint, but also reducing their electricity usage, their energy usage, and their water bills along the way. So what I would love to know from teachers is So there is a council component of this. So if council signs up to the program, then that would give a discount to any school within our local government area to access this program. So, and there's two elements at the moment. There's a community element at the moment, so anyone in the community can go access this, and then schools. But if your council isn't signed up to it, it's fairly expensive. So to access the individual app, it's currently $30, but it's reduced to $15 if your council is a member. But for schools, it's slightly more significant. So this is where I'd love to get some thoughts on whether schools would be interested in participating in the Climate Clever program or do this process to look at carbon footprints of schools. So I should have looked a bit, there's different tiers of costs, but with a discount based on a council subscription, schools are probably looking at about $1,000 investment in the app. So I would just love to know whether, what kind of price would be a barrier to schools. Would this be a deal or no deal kind of thing, or is there extra, research we need to do? Do we need to do some case studies about, what are the actual, cost savings for this? In the promotional material, Climate Clever have sort of said, one school achieved a 30% reduction in their energy and water bills. So I don't know what kind of monetary saving that looks for individual schools, but if that's something that would be, in a school's price range, and especially looking at that payback period, like what, $1,000 investment to what kind of cost savings would be really interesting. But if there are schools that would be interested in this, and maybe if you saw the Planet A, that was something that you're keen to take on, I'd really love to hear from you. So again, go to that email that Ben will plonk in all the info.
Cool. Thanks, Alice. That I hope schools take it up. I think it'll be really good. I think it's hard for schools to come up with what to do by themselves. So it looks like that app's going to spell it out to make it a lot easier for people. Yeah,
it does look really good. And and as they that school on Planet A, they did a fabulous job. So hopefully there are some, cost savings as well as carbon reduction.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Did council signed up to the school app or the whole lot? Because I noticed there's business as well as community and school in there.
We haven't signed up to anything yet.
Oh, okay. So
this is me asking, would this be something that schools would be interested in? And if there is an appetite, then we can go ahead and get a subscription to this, which would give us that 50% discount to all schools. As I'm aware, their business module isn't available yet, but that is coming.
Oh, okay. Because I reckon businesses could be interested.
Yeah.
I'll be quick. And could you do a pilot with a school that put their hand up, so you could start to get a primary school and a secondary school, and council sort of pay for that maybe?
I'm not the one to ask, Jenny, but I can certainly, I'd certainly champion something like that to my superiors.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Alice. We've got a bit of a climate change theme here today, because the next agenda item is I'm going to bring up the results of a recent survey. And I'm still screen sharing. Can you still see the screen there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got on a website from an organisation called Save the Children. So Save the Children's a global not-for-profit organisation, which is obviously focused on children's welfare. So Save the Children was a partner with the Australian Institute for Disaster Recovery in a recent survey, and the survey is titled Our World, Our Say. And it was a national survey of children and young people on climate change and other disaster risks. So I'm just going to highlight the important parts of this page. I'm not going to read out the whole thing. So 1,500 children and young people aged between 10 and 24 years participated in the online survey. It was co-designed by young people. and it had questions on climate change, natural hazards and disaster risk, with questions designed to identify children and young people's priority for action by decision makers. Okay, so the results presented in the report indicate that young people are deeply concerned about climate change. So I think that we're really on point with what we're talking about today, because we now have data to back this up. And the results were only published less than a month ago. Young people are concerned about how climate change will impact their own lives, and even more concerned about the impacts that are far-reaching and universal. The next paragraph states that the data indicates that not only are young people in Australia experiencing natural hazards, but they are experiencing them more often. Young people are telling Australia that although their education has had a strong focus on causes and the impacts of natural hazards, it has not equipped them with the skills and knowledge needed to help mitigate the impacts of disasters on themselves and their communities. So this rings a bell of a conversation that the three of us had just, I believe, back in March, when we were talking about, we've just had these big bushfires. You know, whose responsibility is it to teach kids about what a bushfire plan is? And so obviously we've now got data that backs up that conversation is really important to have. So rather than read out the rest of this page, I'm just going to show you another page from a different website called The Conversation. So The Conversation is a website that's basically, it's written by university academics, but it's written in a way that it's supposed to be accessible to the whole community, not just to people at university. And this article on The Conversation is titled "More Bushfires, Less Volcanoes. Young Australians Need to Learn About More Relevant Disasters." And it's written by Professor Emerita of Science and Environmental Education at RMIT and a research fellow at the Centre for Urban Research at RMIT. And it's focusing on that survey I just talked about. And essentially what this one says really clearly is that our syllabus, our national syllabus in Australia, or our national curriculum, may not be as relevant now as what kids want it to be, especially with the summer that we just had. So that's a really interesting read. If teachers are sort of thinking, well, climate change, bushfires, how do I incorporate this into my teaching? I would suggest that this is a pretty good place to start. And I would suggest that also getting in contact with either Alice or at Wagga City Council or myself at Air and Earth in Wagga is also a really good way to help teachers just get in contact and say, where do I start with this topic of climate change? What do I do? This is the age I have. You know, how do I broach the subject? Because it looks like, for me, from media reports that are going on now and the data we have now, that young people want to know about it. So I guess I'm offering that we're a way to help teachers decode that. Alice, are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that leads me on to our next and final agenda item, which is a survey that is currently being created in conjunction between Wagga City Council, the Riverina Environmental Education Centre at Air and Earth. So what we were interested in was, do teachers in Wagga want support teaching climate change? Do they think it's important? Are they overwhelmed by it? So what we've done is we've come up with an online survey. It'll be a 10-question survey, and it has questions like, are you required to teach it? Which part of the syllabus tells you to? Do you feel confident in teaching it? And what we're trying to gather is, what do teachers in our local area want help with? And once we know what teachers want help with, we can hopefully design a shared resource between Council, the Riverina Environmental Education Centre and Air and Earth to facilitate the need that teachers have here. So this survey will also go out in an email following this meeting. So it'll go out there in an email next week, and it will have the link to this survey. So if people could fill it out, it's only 10 questions. That would be helpful for us in supporting teachers in the local area. So I believe I've gone through my 100 tabs at the top of my screen now. Do you think we need to yarn about anything else before we
I just thought of one that I mentioned to you the other day, Ben, that
Yep.
I could also give a spruik to, is that council has signed up, actually a couple of things, to the garage sale trail program. So that's a weekend of, well, you know, where anywhere in Australia we'll be having garage sales. So it's all about reuse and upcycling. And this year there's a bit of a theme towards, well, you know, we've, you know, taken a bit of a hit with, you know, COVID economically. So here's a way to, you know, get some materials that, you know, you need, but, you know, getting it, you know, secondhand, or making money, even if you're interested in having a garage sale there to get a bit of extra cash. So yeah, so pretty cool event. So it's 21st and 22nd of November. They're making, you know, some, you know, COVID safe kind of options. So there are opportunities just to have a completely online sale, or they'll give you hints and tips for having a garage sale. You know, we're keeping everyone at a safe distance and sanitizing everything. So that's the 21st and 22nd of November. But they also encourage community groups and schools to participate as an opportunity for fundraising. So if schools are looking for opportunities, that would be a cool one. Hopefully get lots of individuals and groups signed up in Wagga for that event. We're pretty good at having garage sales in Wagga. So hopefully to have it all on the one weekend will make it a nice fun atmosphere. And the other one, and the date's has just left my head, but the Aussie bird count is next month, the 19th to the 25th, I think, is coming to my head as Aussie Bird Week. So council has also signed up for that one. We'll encourage people to participate in the Aussie Backyard Bird Count. It's like a 20-minute bird survey to see what kind of birds are on your patch. It'd be great for schools to head out into the schoolyard to see what kind of birds they can see.
So I've just Googled the date there, Alice, 19th to the 25th of October.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we'll actually get that input. They will get that data after the event. So this will, you know, help us, you know, with our biodiversity strategy. We can see, all right, well, how many people are participating and what kind of birds we're seeing in our area and where we're seeing them. So we'd love lots of schools to, you know, spend 20 minutes with their class doing a survey, and it's just an app which kind of, and they even help you with the identification.
Okay, so it's done on an app, is it?
Yeah, or a website. Cool. There's the two options.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Righto. So I'll make sure I include your email address in the follow-up email to this, Alice. So after this meeting, the email will have all the links that I've mentioned. It will have our contact details. So feel free to contact us if you feel you need help. And Jenny, I feel like we should introduce you, because I've introduced Alice. Jenny Hill is the 2019 New South Wales Environmental Educator of the Year, who we're lucky enough to have living in Wagga with us. So
yes.
Take a bow, Jenny.
Thank you.
That's okay. So yeah, Jenny, can I put your contact? Would it be appropriate for me to put your contact details in that as well, in case people want to ask your advice on something?
Sure, absolutely. I've already offered, and I've already had a couple of people take me up on, you know, the nature stuff, getting out into nature if we ever can get out again.
Cool. Jenny,
yeah.
Can you just maybe give us a 1-minute background on the work that you did with Blue Mountains Council and how your role in getting kids outside into the national park and the education?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for putting me on the spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I'm just trying to show teachers what knowledge you have. So if they've got this question. Yeah,
so we I was a part of a very small team with Blue Mountain City Council, a lot of schools, 35 schools, and we also worked with the early years learning centres, so preschools, long daycare school centres, and our main focus was connecting with nature, and we ran our environmental education programs sort of through that really, and so we had a fairly good idea after the 5 years that I was there about what works and what doesn't. and how to really re-engage. And we did a lot of work with kids who weren't re-engaged with learning as well. And so if anybody's looking to set up something like that, I also did a lot of professional development so that the teachers could learn how to do it, and I'd model for them how they might do that with kids.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So if I'm a teacher in a school and I'm sort of saying, how am I going to go about this? All three of us would be an option with just to connect and ask questions. And if I don't know, I'll just say, call Jenny.
I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I think we've come to a natural conclusion.
Yep.
Short and sweet.
Thanks.
Hopefully, if you're out there and you're on this path and you're enthused by what we're talking about, hopefully you can get something going that's within your scope, so you don't bite off something too big to chew and it becomes a headache. So we can also help you with what to aim for, and I suppose how to take that important first step, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Good stuff, Ben. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Alice.
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Bye.